We need to know what it is, period. We need to know what they're trying to achieve so that we can track the progress or regress of it.
How can you explain SMART goals for your protagonist?
Yeah, good question. So I actually do a series called Story Elements on my YouTube channel, and one of them is on goals, and I talk about SMART goals. So SMART goals is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound.
Okay.
Right? And SMART goals actually was not created for story, but it works. So I have adapted it from like a business model to use it to teach my students how to make goals for their protagonists. So specific means we need to know what it is, period. We need to know what they're trying to achieve so that we can track the progress or regress of it. How will we know that they were successful if we don't know what they were looking for in the first place, right? So your goal needs to be specific. The second one is measurable. So that again goes back to being able to track it, right? We need to know, are they getting closer to it or farther from it? Which is why I always talk about your external goal being the personification of the internal goal. So if someone's goal is to not grieve anymore, how do I track that? What does that look like? And if you can attach grieving to something external or not grieving to something external, then we'll know that when they reach that external thing, then they reach the goal and their grief has probably subsided. The third one is attainable, which means, going back to social proof, you have to prove to me that my protagonist has the skills to be able to attain this goal. Because if not, then I'm not going to believe that they can do it, right? Or if it's a comedy, then you're going to show me that they don't have the skills to attain this goal, which means they're either going to do a really bad job of it or they're going to have to learn along the way, right? Or even in a drama, I don't have those skills, so I have to learn those skills along the way. And so now it's probably going to be during your debate time or somewhere in your journey in your second act where they actually have to learn those skills. The fourth one is relevant. And I like this one because this one kind of starts to attach that internal thing to the external thing. It's like, why does this thing matter to this particular protagonist? So that goes back to choosing the right protagonist for the right goal, having the right goal for the right protagonist. So if you can make it relevant, then we will invest more. We will empathize more. And the last one is time bound. And not every single story is going to have something time bound, but it's basically your ticking clock, right? If there's a state of urgency, if like in Armageddon, you have 18 days before the world explodes, then we understand that suspense is that tension is going to stay there. It's like, oh my God, we only have 18 days and now we have 12 and now we have 15, however many days. So adding a ticking clock, depending upon your story, will always heighten the stakes. So if nothing else, you need specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant. And depending upon what your story is, you can then add a ticking clock.
How else can I write a three-dimensional character?
Good question. So getting into the stuff of the character is where that dimension is going to come from. People are complex. We're not all good. We're not all bad. We all have wants. We all have needs. We all have flaws. We all have skills, even before the inciting incident happens. So if you can figure out what those things are, then you will figure out what's motivating your character, right? I gave this example that I am the youngest of 6 girls. But the closest one in age to me is 6 years older than I am, which would mean that at age 6, she's 12. We don't play the same, right? So we're not interacting in the same way. When I'm 12, she's 18. We don't play the same, so we're not interacting in the same way. Because she's 18, she's graduating from high school, so now I'm at home by myself for another 6 years. So even though I have 5 older siblings, I spent a lot of time alone. So therefore, I have an only child kind of experience just as much as I have a youngest child experience. That shows up in my life. I am an introverted extrovert. A lot of people know me as the life of a party. I have a big personality, but I love being alone. I problem solve alone. I do a lot of stuff by myself because my history taught me to be able to be okay with that, right? Good or bad. So understanding those things about your characters will let you know why they do the things they do. So there may be people who say, well, Shannan, well, why didn't you call me on Saturday? We could have hung out. Because they don't understand that Shannan just likes to sit at home and be by herself because she's used to that. That person may take it personally, you know, oh, well, that's an offense towards me. You don't think that we're really good friends and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, no, it really has nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. And the same thing is true for your characters. They are acting and reacting because of who they are, where they're from. An immigrant is not having the same experience in America as an American-born person. Period. If you know that, depending upon the kind of story you're telling, you can now infuse your story with that stuff. The same thing is culturally. As a Black person, there are things that are going to happen in my house that may not happen in someone else's, right? So you have to then take that and figure out how you can color in the lines of your story with this cultural stuff that makes it authentic for them. But the only way you can do that is if you really take the time out to know who your characters are and know why they're making the decisions they're making. And now you can get three-dimensional people. The other thing is, it's 2021, so we're now doing the same thing for our antagonists, right? Our antagonists get to be three-dimensional now. You know, we're no longer in the Jack Nicholson Joker time. We're in the Heath Ledger and the Joaquin Phoenix, Joker time. We're in the Killmonger time, where we understand our antagonists just as much as we understand our protagonists, which leaves us as an audience fighting with those themes and trying to figure out who's right and who's wrong. And now there's discussion happening when people go home. But that only happens when you take the time to dimensionalize your antagonists, understand what their plan is, understand what they want, what motivates them, right? Which is usually the opposite of your protagonist or the same, right? Like if it's a sports movie, it's the same. We both want to win, right? If it's, some kind of action film, then it's usually the opposite. The antagonist wants to kill people. The protagonist doesn't want them to. Those are the reasons that they are in competition with each other. And I've said before, if we change the POV of the story, then your antagonist should easily become your protagonist, right? Your protagonist is the antagonist, because that antagonist does not exist because your protagonist exists. That was already a person who was already planning to kill people. You came in and became a complication for that person. They didn't start killing people because you exist. They were already a murderer. And as a police officer, you came in and you decided to muddy it up. So if we were telling the story from the killer's point of view, then now that would be our protagonist, right? And they both be dimensionalized enough to put us in the middle of it, right? Because there are stories about vigilantes. They're murderers, but they're doing it for a reason. We understand their reasoning, and sometimes we're on their side for it, right? So if you give us, if you do the work, because some of that work you're going to do is not going to end up on the page, but it's still going to dictate some of the choices you make for those characters on the page.